Welcome to the Kortex Media Podcast, Marketing Accelerator, your compass for navigating the dynamic world of marketing and business growth. I'm Korson Schmidt, founder of Kortex Media. Our mission is to equip marketing agencies with the custom growth solutions they need to unlock massive revenue increases and scale their business. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we're joined by a true unique figure operating at the intersection of technology, law, and agency operations. Ronni Christiansen, a Danish technical privacy engineer who brings over 30 years of experience. He started his agency at 18 and has led projects for brands and public sector clients across Europe and Asia, and even picked up a MyData Award for technology in his work on privacy-first solutions. Ronni is now the founder and CEO of AesirX, a platform that helps agencies move from third-party chaos to first-party, consent-driven data, combining CMP, analytics, and first-party infrastructure, so clients stay compliant and keep their marketing effective. What's interesting about Ronni is that he spans all three worlds: agency life, deep tech, and privacy law. And he's here to show how agencies can turn privacy from a headache into a genuine superpower. Ronni, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here, and I hope we can cover a few interesting areas also for the listeners.
Yeah. I'm super excited for this one, especially for the agency owners who are listening to this one, because Ronni has a very unique product, and AesirX is just genius brand. So stay tuned and listen to Ronni because he has some great things to say. So, Ronni, you started your journey as an agency owner, moved into the technical privacy side, which is quite a rare side. You don't hear much about it, right? So that's why we're kind of diving into this conversation. You left the agency market, contracts burnt, because you really had a mission to help with web compliance and web in general. So, do you mind telling us who AesirX is, what you guys do, what are your core services today that you guys offer to agencies or to other businesses around the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I call AesirX a calling. It's not just a mission or a company, it's a calling to me. I spent 3+ decades in the industry, and at a certain time or point in time, I got tired of the theater of consent, or privacy and compliance. Like we buy these third-party solutions, we implement them, and then we tell our customers as agency owners that now you're compliant. But when we do that, we also put our name on it. We put our reputation on it. So when we tell a customer, you can trust me as your trusted advisor, that now you're compliant, your solution is compliant, and then it's not true, then I think we have a problem. We have an industry problem. So because we do not have industry responsibility in our industry, like if you're a doctor and you commit malpractice or you cause someone to die, you're going to get in problems with the law. If you're building a house and the house falls down because you didn't build it right, then you would have a liability as the advisor, the constructor in both cases. But in our industry as an agency owner, we don't really have any liability. All we have is our morals and our ethics. So my vantage point in creating AesirX was that I was tired of looking at what I would almost call a theater, like a game of let's pretend everything is running okay, that everything is compliant and done right, but it wasn't. And then when I dug deeper, I realized that the cookie consent as a service solutions, the SaaS providers that deliver a lot of the software that we use to make the company owners, site owners, organization owners of the websites and e-commerce solution, the software we are actually using, which is SaaS platforms, are not even compliant in their data model. Like they collect the IP addresses, they do geo-IP lookups, they do telemetry for invoicing. So things that in Europe under GDPR and e-privacy directive would be deemed to not be technical necessity, but would be something in the third-party supplier's data model, is happening as a standard in all these solutions. So then I went to thinking about it. Every time I implement some of these solutions for my customers in my agency, I'm actually facilitating a sale of a compliance technology and solution that's not even compliant. It's like if you're selling fire alarms to business owners and then you realize the fire alarms are not even compliant. That's bullshit, So that's not something I wanted to put my name on. I didn't want to be the trusted advisor who sold them fire alarms that didn't work. So I decided I wanted to do it better. So I started from scratch. And let me just mention, I have a bit of a unique background because I started building websites when I was 15 as one of the first people in Denmark at all. So I built the first CMS and e-commerce platform in Northern Europe, the first MP3 shop in Europe, etc., etc. So I've done a lot of things over the years. But on my 18th birthday, I actually started my first agency in Denmark. It was one of the first agencies in Northern Europe that worked with open source web technologies as well. And I've been in the open source part of the open web for the past 25 years as well. But then coming into building these solutions and helping customers, etc., I realized that we have to add something additional to the table so that it really comes together and so that what we deliver to the customers is compliant, is working, etc. So anyways, that was the side that we'll get back to the main stuff. So when I decided 3 years ago that I was going to leave the agency industry and I was going to go full focus in on AesirX, the ambition was to try and do it right. So I would actually redo the data model. I would write myself out of the data model. We would not be a SaaS, we would be a first-party supplier. We would actually do it correctly. But back to my origin story, and when I was 25, and after I'd been running the agency for 7 years, I thought I needed to do something different. So I studied political science, to try and do something different, get some other tool sets in. And then I realized that I would not be working in the public sector because my drive and ambition and my desire to build things and move fast were not compatible with working in the public sector. So I continued in the web agency business. But it means that I have a background that's 32 years of tech, front end and back end, system architecture, CTO, etc., etc. But at the same time, I'm a CEO, I'm an agency owner. I've been talking to customers for 3 decades, but then I also studied political science. So I have a background in policy and legal as well. When I decided to build AesirX, I started by analyzing the policy, then the law, and then I started hashing out all the system architecture, what would be required to build compliant solutions. So that when I promise an agency that when they implement our solutions to their customers, it will be compliant. It will be done right. There's no cheating. There's no theater. We don't make the laws. There's different laws around the world, Canada, California, Denmark, etc. Everyone has different laws. But at the end of the day, if you promise your customer it's going to be compliant, it should be compliant. And especially if the customer is paying for that. But if no one is actually trying to facilitate access to technology that enables compliance or gives the opportunity of building it compliant, but only takes your money away from you without delivery, then I think we have a problem. So I decided to use my very special background and then build AesirX up. And I spent the last 3 years doing that. So now we have our first part consent management in the market where we do it completely legally. But very soon, actually December 4th and December 11th, we have 2 major releases of our first party analytics platform coming out as well with completely unique features. So we're going to add in to our user experience flow and our UTM tracking, we're going to add in value mapping of all UTM tracking. We're going to do the same for first-party tag management after. So this is very important because when you operate a full first-party compliance stack, then with the coming changes to the law in Europe in digital omnibus, if you are in your own path, as they call it, you're completely first party, you're allowed to collect all the data without consent. So if you can then take everything that people are used to doing with SaaS providers and put that in a first party platform, then you can deliver all the data. So you're not missing 50% of the data. You're not getting blocked by scripts and auto blockers and whatnot. So part of the foundation for establishing and creating AesirX was to do it right on the compliance side, but also to be able to facilitate digital marketing with a full data foundation without cheating on the corners, or finding the easy way out or just ignoring compliance, but actually doing it right, but still getting the data, still making sure that you follow the intent of the law and the practical approach of the law in the best possible way so that you're not cheating, you're doing it correctly. But you're using system design and architecture to design that it's done compliant and you can still operate the business. So that was my quick.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I appreciate you kind of diving through, giving us some of your background, kind of how you got started and the vision behind it. Now, do you mind speaking about some of the consequences if companies aren't following these first party compliance labels and these privacy labels? Because there's some huge consequences coming out. The United States are now starting to track down on some of this. Do you mind giving us some quick examples on what can happen if you don't start looking into a solution like AesirX?
Yeah, we can say in the US right now, especially in California, but also in a few other states, we're seeing more and more fines being issued. Last week, another fine came out again. Earlier this year, Honda got a fine of $632,500. So fundamentally, on Honda's website, in the consent management they had integrated. In the California, you got opt-out regimes, unlike European Union where it's opt-in regimes, or yeah, in Quebec you got opt-in regime as well, actually. But it's a different story in Canada as well. But in California, they got opt-out regimes. But when the user gets to the website, you need to have a privacy notice to sort of informing people what data you're collecting and why. They need to be able to find it with one click. Then they need to be able to do one click to opt out of tracking. When they do that, instead of just, removing the first-party cooking, you're setting on the third-party cooking, you actually need to stop the data tracking. When they opt out, or if they have a browser signal, an opt-out signal in the browser, like global privacy control in California, Colorado, for instance, you have to respect that and make sure you're not tracking any of their data. So if they come into your website, they have a browser signal, and then you're not listening for it, you're not respecting it, but you're still collecting the data, sharing it with third parties, ad tech, data brokers, etc., then you're non-compliant. So in California this year, we actually see more fines for consent violations or lack of opt-out, browser signal support, lack of, or rather implementation of dark patterns, so you need to go further steps down to find the opt-out options, or you need to supply your personal data to opt-out, etc. So California this year is giving more consent-related fines than European countries. So when people are saying that the European Union is so hard on GDPR, e-privacy directive and consent and everything, not really. I mean, there are large GDPR fines in the European Union, and big tech, especially Meta, etc., Google are getting major fines in the European Union under the Digital Markets Act, etc. But when it comes to enforcement of consent and privacy regulations on websites with data tracking, etc., California is up there. It's one of the first movers globally right now in terms of that. Now, California, Colorado, and 7 other states in the US have actually now formed a small group of states that's working together to try to implement the same kind of legislation, so you have a more harmonized approach to it. That's a good thing about Europe, because GDPR and e-privacy directive gives you the same rule set for all of Europe. So if you have a customer as an agency that has an e-commerce shop or website that is in many different markets and countries, if you have to build that so it has different laws in each market, it's a nightmare. And a lot of times you couldn't even do it. So in the European Union, because you have the same rule set, it's harmonized. In the US, every state has its own rules. You even have a few states that says you need opt-in consent for children. And if you don't know if it's an adult, you need to treat every visitor like a child. So in general, if you don't know if people are children or adults, right, that means you effectively, even though the state has an opt-out regime, now you have to implement an opt-in regime, because you have to assume everyone is a child until proven otherwise. So the American state laws are so different, it's very hard to figure out what to do. So as a privacy engineer and technical engineer, when I design these systems, I have to make sure that they can be configured in every single state or country to behave in a different way. But of course, we are seeing a movement across both Europe and US now towards browser signals and opt-out signals in browsers. And I think that California, in their newest legislation, has made a really interesting move, because they're now forcing browser manufacturers and mobile operative system suppliers to honor browser signals directly. So before, California has had a law for global privacy controls and opt-out signals for the past years, Colorado as well. But right now, Chrome, Google's big browser Chrome, doesn't support them. You have to install a plugin to support it. But Firefox and Brave, etc., other browsers support opt-out signals. But now Google will be forced to put it in Chrome as well. And also on Android or on iOS, it will have to be implemented on the operating system level. That means that if you don't want to be tracked online and you don't want anyone to sell your data to 1,700 data brokers where they can buy it all over the world, even bad state actors, really bad state actors are buying up data of Americans and North Americans and tracking their movement and using it for bad purposes. If we want to prevent that, then you can use a browser signal. The funny thing is, last week, the European Commission sent out the Digital Omnibus proposal, and they talk about browser signals as well. But for some strange reason, they seem to think you can give a yes with browser signals. But there's no way for the browser to guess what is loaded on the website. There's an endless possibility of scripts that can track data, and there's no way for a browser plugin or browser to guess that. So it would never work in reality. But that's the problem when policymakers are so far removed from the technology that they don't understand the implications. And that sadly is a very common problem. So going back to your question, California is the place to be, but you can also take Texas. Texas has fined 4 major car manufacturers during the past year for violations, because every time you buy a car, they steal all your data, all your location data, geographic data, everything you do in your car is being recorded and sent to their servers. And some of them even sell it to data brokers.
Wow.
If you went into a physical shop and they tracked you running around recording everything, taking pictures, and then they shared it with 500 other shops, you would get angry. You would get pissed. What the fuck? I'm never coming back into your shop, right? But yet, when it's digital or online, or you buy a electronic product, digital product, is the default, is the norm. So California also has a new Delete Me Act coming out now. So they have a website. So if you're a Californian citizen, you can log into the website. Then you can ask to be deleted. And then the data broker's website don't have to honor it. Of course, it's not realistic. Every state and country in the world cannot make their own delete system and their own delete APIs, etc. We need to have public infrastructure that can resolve it across borders and everything. But California is in many ways a first mover in the way they're doing it. And because most of the tech companies are incorporated and operating out of California, they actually have access to force them to implement browser signals, etc. But California is clearly the state in the North America where the biggest fine has been issued the last year. And it's very specific. It's privacy violations because people are not aware of what's going on and they can't find a way to opt out, etc. It's hidden. The consent system is not real. It's theater. Like multiple of the fines also dealt out this year is because you click opt out and nothing happens. Like literally nothing happens. You have all the windows and the boxes and you click and then nothing happens at all. Just pretend. So, and of course, we see the same in Europe time and again. So I think that because some states and some countries are really starting to enforce it and are better at understanding the technical composition of how tracking actually operates in the modern MarTech stack, then we are seeing more enforcement in those areas, where some other places, the politicians still haven't really understood what the technology is about. So we see some, excuse my language, but half-assed political or policy proposals that you cannot implement in reality. And then, it's a bit of a shame. We also see the new digital omnibus in Europe right now that they implement browser signals, but then they make media services exempt, meaning that media websites, you go to a media website and they have their 895 partners who are tracking all your data from all the data brokers and ad tech suppliers. So the only industry with an exemption at all is the media service sites, which are the ones that load all the ad tech and data broker technologies and facilitate the biggest amount of data sharing. So that's a little strange, right? Why would you make an exemption for the biggest problem? That means they don't have to honor the browser, the browser signal, but you still have to see the consent window. And then it's under the guise of freedom of journalists and press freedom. Well, you know what? Press freedom doesn't have anything to do with facilitating the mass theft and abuse of our data and our behavioral data. So there's clearly, there's an ad tech data broker industry and lobbyists that play who have a lot of money and a lot of influence, but it's not technical possible of realizing some of the things they're proposing. So it's a problem. But I would pay a lot of attention to CCPA in California and what's going on in California. In many ways, they're setting the potentially global future standards in a lot of ways. So I would keep an eye out. And the fines are just coming week after week after week. So pay attention and make sure you support browser signals in California.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think it's a lot of education factor. A lot of people are starting to become more aware of, like you said, people can walk into a store and if they're taking photos and videos of you, people are going to get upset and pissed off and not come back to your store. People are starting to see that more online and see the data tracking that is happening, and people are starting to be like, what the hell's going on? Like, how are they tracking me? How are they following me? And getting personalization this close, it's like, this is a little bit creepy. So I think people are finally catching on and learning about kind of what's going on within this industry now. Back to the agency side of things. So we talked about kind of what you guys do. We talked about the biggest problems that agencies have with these services and actually the consequences they can have as well. Now, you guys do have something on your website where they can bring in their website, plug it in, and it'll tell them all the tracking pixels that are in their website. So do you mind telling us now the solution for agencies who are going through this? So let's start with the solution. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, we have a privacy scanner that we put out there available for free. We also have a privacy advisor AI who can explain the privacy results in the privacy scan as well. So and you can give it context. You can say, I'm sitting in this city, in this state, in this country, and this is my, what's wrong with my site, and it will tell you exactly what to do and why, etc. So the reason why we launched a privacy scanner was because technical privacy. We're so happy that technical privacy is binary, and it's technical. It's something you scan, then you see the list, and it's compliant or it's not. When we talk about GDPR compliance, for instance, under GDPR, you can have 10,000 GDPR lawyers, and they will give you 10,000 different risk assessments. And then you're like, what? So what do I do? What's right? Is this risk assessment right? Or is this risk assessment right? And what's a medium risk, and how do I mitigate that? Technical privacy is different. It's black and white. And that's for as a nerd who builds solutions and systems, in this industry. I love that because now I have the playing rules for the game. So now I can just play the perfect game and then we win, right? So the privacy scanner will show to you what is collected prior to consent on your website. And it's a really good test because a lot of business owners and even agencies get big surprises when they see that. We also have some funny things we can see. If you implement a lot of scripts and tracking through Google Tag Manager, then Google Tag Manager technically injects the scripts into the DOM after the DOM has rendered. So as an example, one of the ones I meet very, very frequent is LinkedIn. LinkedIn conversion tracking, if you do LinkedIn advertising for one of your customers, then you will load LinkedIn conversion tracking with Google Tag Manager. What happens is LinkedIn sets 4 third-party cookies and also the beacon itself, the tracking script from the conversion tracking. Now, when that's injected from Google Tag Manager, they don't actually show up in the developer console. So when you're sitting in the developer console as the marketeer, the growth expert, or the developer in the agency, you're sitting and checking Google Developer Console, and then you're looking, oh yeah, everything is fine, you send it to the customer. But then you use our privacy scanner, and then it shows 4 cookies from LinkedIn and the script itself, plus the other things you potentially inject or have misconfigured and set up wrong. So for a lot of agencies, it's a wake-up call. Even those who think they're doing it correctly, even those who implement cookie consent banners, because then they realize, holy moly, the cookie consent banner only handles cookies. So now we're 0 third-party cookies before consent, but we're still loading 48 different big pixels and pixel trackers and beacons and scripts and SDKs. And the laws don't care if it's a cookie. The laws actually handle about the process of collecting the data, or in the European Union e-Privacy Directive 5.3, it's access to the consumer's terminal equipment, their device. So depending, in England, it's in UK it's the PECA PECR, in Norway it's the Ecom Act, etc., etc. So around the world, in many countries and areas, you have these laws that define that before you get access to the device, start collecting data, you need explicit consent. Then you have the other regime, which is GDPR. Anytime you collect anything that's personal relatable. But yeah, the third-party cookie can be used for cross-site identification of the person. That's why it's personal relatable. But the cookie is the smallest problem today. 80% plus of all tracking online is not even using cookies. It's all the other tracking technologies. And now, of course, server-side technologies is the new heyday of how to try and circumvent consent requirements or following the legal requirements. So our privacy scanner is a tool we issue to really make it simple for people to figure out what's going on. So for agencies, we also have a real-time scanner. We also have a privacy monitoring so that you're able to do it automated without having to do it manually time and again. And if we go into a UX context, from the 15th of July this year, the US expanded the natural covered persons to prevent that the foreign nationals can collect geographic IP data from US citizens. Mm-hmm. So if you're actually collecting data, geo IP data, etc., and you're doing that, and then you're sending it to a third party in the extended natural covered persons laws they have now, fundamentally, before, if a Chinese company did it, it was not legal. Because they're on the list, Iran is on the list, etc. But now, if a Chinese national owns a company that owns another company that has the data you are sending to, then you have a problem. So the U.S. has really got an issue with a presidential executive order by Biden first, then enforced by Trump. And now from the 15th of July, the DOJ, Department of Justice in the U.S., is now actually, if they ask your company, if you're monitoring that you're not collecting any data and sharing the third-party GeoEP data with anyone else outside of the U.S., you have to be able to deliver documentation for your ongoing privacy monitoring. And almost no companies in the US knows that, no agencies is aware of that. Yet since 15 July this year, the DOJ can do that. They can contact any company and say, hello, are you following the law? Can you document that you're actually monitoring what is happening on your website, etc.? So again, awareness. But that's why we have both the privacy scanner and the privacy AI advisor, because awareness is really low. But to change that, first we need access to tools, technology, and knowledge. Once we have access, then we can then we can move forward.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's an amazing explanation, Ronnie. Thank you for that. And this is a huge educational factor, not only for the agency owners, but if anyone who owns a company as well that is working with an agency, just to open up your eyes and think about maybe you aren't compliant, because even if you get audited as the business owner, it's going to come back to the marketing agency because they're the one that installed the tools. But still, at the end of the day, no one wants to get caught. No one wants to be the person doing illegal things without even knowing it, right? So, I mean, really, like you said, get up on your education, get up on your consent forms, and really start plugging in these actual solutions now.
Yeah, and remember Ronnie, one thing. Yeah, just one quick thing, Korson. What's interesting is because you are the company owner, you have the ultimate data controllership, meaning that no matter what your agency tells you, you will still get the fine. Worst case scenario, your agency or supplier can have a joint controllership with you, but at the end of the day, you are always the controller because you hired the agency or SaaS provider. So in that sense, as the company owner, you cannot avoid responsibility. You're always stuck on the bill. And then, of course, if the agency or company you hired went against your will or did something different, etc., then they can also be a joint data controller on those aspects, and they can get fined, and maybe you can get a reduction in fine, etc. But as long as you have the responsibility of hiring them, that's a little, if you hire someone who's a criminal to do a crime, then you still have a problem, right? So, and for data compliance and privacy, it's the same matter. So the same, let's say you hire some Chinese or North Korean company to do analytics on your website and send all the data to a server in North Korea or China. Then if the DOJ finds out and come after you, then as the business owner, you're gonna get sued to smithereens, So it's gonna be very expensive.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone's starting to crack down on these laws now, but us agency owners, we need to open up our eyes and really see kind of what's going on and make sure you are compliant within the regulations, because there's going to be a lot of change, I think, coming very soon, just like you said, Ronnie, and they're starting to crack down now, right? So, I mean, if you are an agency owner today and you could tell them one thing, Ronnie, with the tools that you guys are rolling out, what would be the one thing you would say to agency owners today to make sure they are compliant, make sure they are in the guidelines, make sure they are doing the best work for their client?
Well, I would say depending on where your customers are and where their website visitors, e-commerce visitors are, etc., the laws diverge from opt-in regimes to opt-out regimes. But across all of it, we're seeing browser signals getting into the new law. We're seeing having to do actual compliance, honoring active. So if people opt out, no matter if it's the US or Europe, you have to block all tracking. You have to make sure that no data is collected and shared with third parties, etc. So browser signals is going to be very big in the coming years. So right now, of course, our first-party CMP already supports global privacy control, etc., etc. So, but some of the cookie consent solution doesn't do that. So just you have to make sure also that it's not dark patterns, that you can actually easily, as easy as you could opt in, you could opt out. So then it doesn't matter really if you're in California or you're in Denmark. You might be swapping the configuration if it's opt in or opt out, but at the end of the day, it's the same way the technology works. It's the same lists of cookie declarations and what are we collecting, who are we sharing it with, why are we sharing it with them. Those questions have to be clear if it's in a privacy policy, etc. And if people opt out, say, don't sell my data, don't share my data, then you have to stop it. Whether it's a rejection of consent or an opt-out, at the end of the day, it's the same end result. The difference is that in the opt-in regimes in the US, all your data can be sucked up and sent and sold to a data broker where it's resold 2,000 times. So by the time you opt out, it's already too late. The cat is out of the bag and your data will never be coming back. Then by the new laws in California, you can then request to be deleted by the data brokers. But if the data brokers already sold it 2,000 times, you will never get out of those databases they sold it to, right? So I'm still a huge fan of opt-in regimes because that's the only way technical to ensure that the chain of consent and data actually functions. And then you can use browser signals to reject the consent. But I would say first-party data, first-party analytics combined with consent requirements, etc., is essential. In Europe, with the new digital omnibus that came out last week, Wednesday, from the European Commission, they open up an own path, which means that if you're completely first party, you're collecting analytics data, etc., and you're hosting it, you're using it for yourself, you're not sharing it with anyone else, it's not going to a SaaS provider, anything else, then you can do that without consent. If they finalize that and it goes in that direction, and we can already see in France, the CNIL, the DPA in France, which is CNIL, C-N-I-L, they already have made the same for first-party analytics. They made an exemption saying, well, if you're first-party analytics, you can be allowed to do this. The same in the new Data and Use Act in the UK. They opened the same statistical own path, first-party approach, that you can be allowed to do statistical data for your own website if you're hosting it yourself, etc., etc. So across multiple countries and regions, we're seeing this first-party pattern coming out really strong. So when you see a SaaS provider of analytics, for instance, who claim they're privacy-friendly, well, they are not, because, you're loading a third party with device access, etc., etc. So in reality, that's not any more privacy-friendly, because what happens is, even if they anonymize your IP, etc., that happens after processing. So after they process the data, then they anonymize it and store it in final form, but they already process it as a third party. So in that sense, it's not privacy friendly. It's trying to circumvent the laws. But if you run a complete first party channel for the companies you have as customers, and you can supply a first party server, first party tag management, first party UTM tracking, first party analytics, first party consent management in a package. If we compare with Google Analytics 4 as an example in Europe, we see today that almost 50% of the data in Google Analytics 4 is missing. It's simply gone. So if you're missing half of the data and you don't know which half is missing, your data is useless. I mean, if you studied economy or statistics or anything, you know that if you're missing 50% of the data, you can't use it to anything, right? Yet that's reality. In Europe, it's 50%. In the US and North America, it's 35% today. That's being blocked by browsers and scripts and rejections, etc., etc. So if that's the case, then the foundation of data you get is useless. It's really fundamentally useless. So if you can swap to a fully 100% first-party platform and you get 100% data, that's pretty strong, because now you will be able to do everything you did before, but with a legal data foundation. If you can deliver that as an agency in the coming months and the coming couple of years, then you will be standing out, because everyone who just one-click installs Google Tag Manager, Google Analytics, Google BigQuery, etc., they will be missing 50% of the data. So if that's the competition point, if that's the advantage you're seeking, then going first-party data is everything. And of course, there are also a few other suppliers of first-party analytics in the market. Some also have SaaS versions, but at the end of the day, there's not that many first-party suppliers in the market, because everyone has been saying the last 10 years, oh yeah, build a SaaS, get all the data, then you become a very rich man, right? Because data is the new oil. Well, legal data is the new oil, compliant data is the new oil. But if you're cookie consent as a service provider with an illegal data model where you're doing telemetry before consent so you can invoice the website owner based on how much traffic there is, and that's illegal, then your data model is illegal. That means your business model is illegal. Then what are you going to do, right? So we have to be, I would say, really look at first-party alternatives. Try and build as much of a data foundation you can with as little amount of tools as you can, and make sure you have compliant foundation for when you integrate third parties. The times where you just added in 50 SaaS providers with all sorts of things is over. It's finished, You can't collect people's behavioral data, geo-IP data, and send it all over the world because you think it's smart. You have to have a foundation for doing it. And especially if you're an agency owner working in an agency and you put the label trusted advisor on your LinkedIn, trusted advisor, then live up to that, own it, right? Be a trusted advisor, and then actually advise your customers to do what's the most reasonable in the coming years. So when we're talking about risk, if you advise someone to go first party, compliance strategy, making sure everything is okay, then the risk will be very, very low. There's a high probability it will be successful in the coming years. If you're telling them, it doesn't matter, there's not that many fines coming out yet, then you might as well go to Las Vegas and put the money on red, right? It's a problem if they get caught.
Definitely. Ronnie, I have used your free tool on the website through AesirX. Now, I noticed that there was some that would bring up like Facebook pixels, for example. So I just want to bring this in for me to understand. After I did that a couple times, I noticed it was quite common with a lot of websites for companies who I'm assuming are running Facebook or Meta ads, for example. How do you block those pixels from Facebook, Meta, LinkedIn, etc., without, because it's not a consent banner? Or how does it work? I don't want to bring up random things and pretend like I don't know anything, because I know some, but I don't know a lot. So I want you to explain it for me. How do you block some of those
depends
pixels?
on I would say it depends on where you are. If you're in the European Union or you're in an opt-in regime, that could also be India by the new personal data protection law, or Vietnam for that matter, or many other countries around the world. If you're an opt-in regime, then you cannot load any of the Meta pixel or TikTok pixel for that matter, or LinkedIn pixels or anything until after explicit or informed consent. So you have to hold all of it back. In our WordPress plugin, when you install the CMP into WordPress, we read all the plugins that's being installed. Then our privacy advisor AI scans the website before and after consent. It populates all the lists. It categorizes everything we find. Then you can one click and we block everything automatically by AI. We write the cookie policy, the cookie declaration, the privacy policy, the consent text. You can just apply it with a click also. So, but we have the world's only solution for WordPress with a consent shield in it, where everything is automated by AI. We also have a standalone JavaScript version you can implement in any platform, but here you have to implement the blocking in the JavaScript layer itself by when you're loading the third-party JavaScripts, etc. Then you implement the additional JavaScript from a AesirX CMP that then blocks it and hold it back. We also can do opt-in consent in the user experience, like on our website. When you load our website, we don't load Stripe, which is our payment processor. But once you click pay, we ask you for opt-in consent. Then when you give consent, then we load Stripe and then you're allowed to pay. But that's data minimization. That's a reduction of the attack surface. But if you are in opt-out regimes, let's say you're in California, you can load Meta's pixel tracker, but then if I come in, you have to check if my browser have an opt-out signal, like browser global privacy control. If it has that, you have to instantly remove Meta's pixel. Then if I go in, or I go in manually and I opt out, one click and then opt out, then you have to remove Meta's pixel tracker, etc., and you have to clean the session as well. Now, of course, the problem is that on the first visit, you already sent the IP and Meta and referrer data to Facebook in the Meta pixel. So the basic data is already there. And then specifically, technically, as per Californian law, when they opt out, in reality, you're supposed to remove the data again, but no one does that. Because it's too technical, hard to implement with every single third party. But in reality, if you opt out, in our solution with our first party consent, first party analytics, then we will clean up the analytics data and remove it, because that's what the law actually says. So, but it depends on where you are. But once people say opt out, it's not just a cookie for the consent banner you have to remove. You have to actually remove the full loading of everything. So that's where the difference is. But because now with all the latest fines in California, as an example, they're referencing all the dark patterns in terms of how you can opt out. So everything they're saying in Europe about dark patterns preventing you to do consent or revoke your consent is now the same they're saying for opt-out and browser signals in California. So at the end of the day, you pretty much need the same consent interface. One is just in one direction and the other in the other direction. But at the end of the day, they need the same functionality. So the consumer needs to be able to act based on the legal foundation with one click, without any dark patterns, any confusion, any blockers or hindering in any way. It has to be really simple to do it. So,
Gotcha.
But yeah, at the end of the day, if you opt out in California, remove the Meta pixel. If they don't consent in Europe with an explicit informed consent, we're collecting data with Meta pixel tracker for this and this purpose and these data. And we're doing ads and this and this and this. If you don't tell people that in the consent window and they say yes, but they reject, then you cannot load it. So then you load the website without the pixel tracker, and then you don't get the data your ad campaigns in Facebook, in Meta, for instance. And then you won't have the right conversion numbers, you won't have the right fiscal numbers, you won't have the right data because you're missing random 25, 35, 50% of the data. But that's the reality of the digital marketing stack right now, is that it is missing between 25 and 50% of the data all over the world. So the attribution value of what your digital marketing is worth and the results coming out of it is not something you can rely on any longer. And you haven't been able to the last couple of years. So already now we're sort of in a state where we don't have real data. So I knew a guy in a company, a CMO in a company, he said, yeah, you know what? We just stopped all the tracking anyways because it was useless. And then we just added more money to the Facebook budgets. And then now we can see we have more revenue. But they don't know why. They don't know what's working. But they took the license money from the expensive third-party SaaS and then they put it into Facebook ads instead. And then they say, yeah, we're doing it blindfolded, but we can see we have revenue, right? So he's crossing fingers. It will last like that. But if you can't count on the data because you're not getting the data, at the end of the day, you don't know it, right? So I've been talking to enterprise companies who have like the IT division, marketing division, analytics division, and then they have to report data to the board of directors. And then once a month on the Friday board of directors meeting, then 3 different reports will arrive at the BOD and they have 3 different numbers. So wow. What's the board of directors going to do when they get 3 different numbers from 3 different departments? But that's reality. That's how it is today. Because unless you have a completely first-party setup and everything is done correctly, you won't get the full data. But at least, I mean, with the newest direction from the European Union, what we see is going on with the own path opening for first-party data. There is a pathway where you can do your own analytics, host all the data yourself, and not involve ad tech, data brokers, and third parties, etc. And in my book, that's okay because the data is not being collected with others. People decided to go to your website. If they decided to go to your website and you're collecting data for your own website on how it works, etc., and what to improve, etc., that makes sense to me. If you're doing it with a SaaS provider that has access to all the data, etc., and the IP and other things are shared with the SaaS provider, then it's a different story. Then, of course, you're going to need consent with that because you're allowing someone else into the data window. But if I go to your website, then our direct connection is initiated by me going to your website. On my request, I enter your domain name, I go to your website. So there's an expectancy on first party where we are aligned that I initiated the indirect contract, so to speak. But if I didn't get to your website and you load 895 partners behind my back and share all my data, then I'm going to get angry because I don't think that's fair, right? Yeah. So I think that's the difference.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a great explanation, Ronni. Thanks for kind of clearing that up for me and for anyone else who's listening who maybe had the same question. So, I mean, looking ahead for AesirX, you have an amazing mission, you have an amazing vision of what you want to do with AesirX and really help a lot of these agency owners and the compliance world in general, because this is something new that we're starting to hear about more and more, and there's more fines, there's more regulations coming out day by day, right? So, looking ahead for you, Ronni, what are your biggest goals for the company? Where do you want to see AesirX in the future? And then what is your vision behind this mission?
I'm hoping that at some point AesirX will not really have any need for me, because then my calling has been succeeded. I mean, if I can go online, or I can see my kids going online without getting all their data collected, tracked, and abused also data breakers, etc., and on the same time see that businesses are still doing digital marketing, that you still are getting numbers, that you're still able to compute the value of what you're doing online, etc., so that it actually happens on a foundation of respect, and mutual agreement. That's also why we got the MyData Award. I got it for technology, as AesirX got it for business and technology. It's because we're facilitating the respectful agreement on how data is used, and it's the data subject, the consumer, that's the owner of their own data. So if that foundation is in place, then it's a respectful relation that happens. If that can be reality in the future, and if we can have that impact, that people get access to compliant and legal solutions that facilitates that respectful interaction and agreement around the data and use of data, and we're going to get a lot of customers, a lot of partners in agencies, in the partner channel, etc., and then at some point, maybe the company doesn't need me any longer because we resolved the problem. So I've been in the industry for 32 years. Every 10 years, I release something that's, it sets the new agenda in the industry. It's a whole new way of doing things. And I enjoy that. I enjoy to resolve problems by technology, by thinking more about it than most other people, and then putting it together, designing it, system architecture, and sending it in the market. But I think that if in 3, 4, 5 years I wake up one day and I think, oh, I don't think AesirX needs me any longer, that means my calling has been fulfilled. That means that maybe I'll go retire or, sit on a beach somewhere, or maybe I'll build something new. Maybe I can't help
Yeah.
it. But I think at the end of the day, when you have a calling, when you set out to resolve a problem, your goal should be related to that problem being resolved and you have finished your mission or your calling. It's not I don't have a specific fiscal goal. I don't expect to exit in 2 years or 3 years. I don't expect this or this or this. Of course, there are scenarios where at some point we set an agenda for the future. We get so many customers, agencies, and users that certainly one day Microsoft shows up and says, you know what, Ronnie, what you did sure is smart, and we'd love it to be a part of what we do, and we'd love to support this first data direction and this and this and this. And who knows, maybe we'll figure out that day that might be the right partnership for us. I won't say no to that on the forefront. What's important to me is the realization of the goals, of the values, of the mission, of the calling that we set out to do, and so we're not a classical startup with big exit strategy ideas and concept. We're looking more at fulfilling the mission we set out to do. So I earlier this year, I was talking with someone about closing a deal where our CMP would get into millions of websites at a really large company, right? And of course, when you do a bulk deal like that, the price is not so much per month as you would do otherwise, right? Because it's a bulk deal and it's really, for enterprise, everything. But on the other hand, if you can, with one snap of the fingers, you can help millions of website owners becoming compliant, millions of agencies ensuring that they don't have to worry about it for their customers. That goes a long way towards our mission and my calling, right? So for me, something like that is super important. That's something I would really put a big check mark on and say, yes, that's a major step towards realization of our goal. I could not do the same in a fiscal amount, as a startup. Yeah, we'd like to be a unicorn in 3 to 5 years. We're absolutely in a market with 350 million potential websites that could be our customers ultimately, right? With potential for a partner channel with 25, 50,000 agencies, whatnot, globally. So we are in a huge market. We're disrupting our competitors because we have a legal data model unlike them. We're not a SaaS, right? We're doing things differently. We wrote ourselves out of the data model. We're actually compliant. We've a lot of the defaults in the industry, we're flipping upside down. We're doing ID verification with zero knowledge proof. We're already supporting Google Wallet, Concordium Wallet. We're adding Apple Wallet as well. Right now we support 12 states in the US, UK and US passports with the Apple Wallet coming. 10 states and UK, US passports with Google Wallet as well. We have Concordium ID. We added privacy preserving technology layer in. So when we're doing it with zero knowledge proof. So the website owner, if you sell alcohol in Denmark, for instance, you have to do an age check, 18 years older. You're not allowed to let people buy alcohol on the website, get into the alcohol website. We do that with state issued or government issued IDs, but then we extend them with arm's length protection through our CMP. ID verification is built into our CMP for both residency for countries and for age verification. But then we use the zero knowledge proof. So now the website owner does not get the data. The website owner does not become a data controller, a data processor. Instead, they just get a yes or no, and then you let the user in or you don't. But the website owner is not getting more risk because they have more data, and those data means different things in every single market they're in. It's getting more and more complicated and expensive to live up to the privacy and compliance requirements. So when we introduce privacy preserving technologies by zero knowledge proof, IDs, etc., we're protecting the website owner from risk. We're mitigating the risk of living up to those things. So, but then again, we're probably the only consent management platform on the planet that has privacy preserving zero knowledge proof ID verification built in as well. And it doesn't even cost extra. It's the same. Our CMP is literally $9 a month per domain name, and all features included, right? So yeah. But if you can disrupt them on price, on technology, on data model, three things at once, then I think you have a good position in terms of changing the industry, changing the market, changing the status quo, and introducing a whole new way of doing it.
For sure. Wow, I love the mission behind it. I love what you guys are doing. I love your drive to really accomplish this goal that you guys have set out to do and your team has set out to do. And I have no doubt that you guys are going to achieve that, because I mean, you're so passionate about this, and it's the way, that's the direction that the economy is going, right? The higher ups in every single continent are starting to look more into this. The higher ups in every state are starting to look more into these compliance regulations, and it's something that is starting to move in the right direction for you, Ronni, and that's super exciting. I mean, it's the right direction for everyone, not just you, but people are actually starting to control what they can have and where their data is going. So,
and that's a good point. Just to comment on that, because it's the right thing to do. You know, if you can wake up in the morning, look yourself in the mirror, and then you say everything we do is the right thing to do, there is something powerful about knowing that you're doing it right. You have it gives you confidence on a different level. You know, you're not cheating at anything. You're not cutting corners. You're doing it right. There's really, for me, there's something profoundly nice of doing that, of working with that, of being able to make a difference by doing things right. Isn't that amazing? We live in a world, if we really become a unicorn with everything and global partner channel and everything, we would have done it by doing things right. I think that's a powerful message. In times of calls and influencers and Twitter posts and whatnot, if you can become a success by doing things right, I think that's a powerful message.
Yes, for sure. It's and especially helping out other people along it as well, because there's a lot of agency owners that are really aware of, hey, I want to do this, but we can't because there's nothing to do it and do it legally. So now that you're making a solution for them, it really helps out a lot of people and a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals.
Yeah, but you get on something important here, because accessibility. Can you afford the solutions? Can you get to them? Do you have information? Do you have awareness? Do you have knowledge? So that's part of, we priced our CMP at $9 per month per domain name, because we didn't want it to be something where, and then the more visitors you have, the more subpages you have, or if you're an enterprise or this or this or this, you have to pay more. This very strange pricing model we have in the SaaS industry for compliance. $9 per month for your domain name. It's first party. We're not hosting. We don't have your data. We're not paying for the traffic. You're doing that, right? So it's a transparent price model. And then, of course, our agency owners in the partners get 30% commission. So there's also something for them. But at the end of the day, it's a fair and honest, transparent pricing model that everyone can afford to be along. If it's a small, hobby, free time, football club or whatever, or it's an enterprise, everyone can afford to be involved. Everyone can afford to use the software and solutions, because if they can, then how can we have laws if we don't have solutions you can afford? There's something that's skewed about that. So for me, that's an important part of the mission statement, is to make software affordable and available so you can become compliant. If you can't afford it, then what do? You have to close your business. I mean, that's what a world, right? So we have to give people access to the software as well. That's a democratic factor, but that's also why I'm an open source advocate. I've been working with open source for the last 25 plus years. So, and just to mention, AesirX is also open source. So all of our repositories is on GitHub. So everything is open source. If you want to contribute, you have a good idea, you can go and you can contribute, do pull requests. We also have a contribute to earn program. So if you're a developer and you contribute, you can actually earn and be part of the community as well. So we do have open doors in many ways.
Amazing. Ronni, I have one final question, and that's for the young entrepreneur getting started in this world. I mean, it's a crazy world right now. There's a lot going on, especially with AI. But for the entrepreneur just getting started in their journey, what is the best piece of advice you could give them to get started?
I would say right now, because of AI and the evolution of AI, it is to own your niche. Own your niche like no one else. Become a specialist, a category specialist, a sub-segment, sub-niche specialist. Like me, I'm a technical privacy expert on consent and consent management, technical implementation on web-facing privacy. I know more than AI does. When AI don't know what to answer, I will give you the answer. So, and that's coming after, 30 years in the agency industry, 25 of those running outsourcing agencies, etc. I pivoted into taking all my knowledge and background and everything and put it into a niche category specialist. Because at the end of the day, if all the knowledge in the book is generic and every AI can answer it, and very soon they can code it and whatnot and make the visuals and content and whatnot, then standing out and being able to add something to the table, thinking out of the box, coming up with new ideas, or like I tell my own kids, the question in the future will be who can come up with the question? Who can figure out on their own accord to write the question to AI, right? Who can think outside of the box to redefine the status quo? Because AI is trained on our text, on everything humans have written. So AI is still bound within a boundary of writing to us what we are expecting. AI always tries to write to us what we expect it to say. AI doesn't write objective truth. It's trained on our text primarily to be able to deliver to us the text that we think is the most relevant. It can be used for many funny things, but at the end of the day, we are in an industry that's going to lose millions of jobs in the coming years. That's the reality. If we want it or not, that's what's going to happen. From marketing to copywriting to development, front-ending, back-ending, etc., we will see mass layoffs in this industry. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to have to be better. We're going to have to be category specialists. We have to know more. We have to give better advice. We have to be really trusted advisors who can connect the dots, who can come in and deliver what AI cannot. AI can give you answers, but it cannot be a trusted advisor, and it can certainly not think out of the box or come up with new solutions beyond anything we have done before. So, but it is important that we remain or retain the focus on critical thinking and thinking outside of the box and saying no. A funny example, every time I use AI, I ask it to assess what I've written and then score it from 1 to 10 across 10 different categories. And then if it doesn't at least give me 9.5 out of 10 or better, then I keep at it. I keep at it. I keep at it. I keep at it. And I keep doing it. And I keep revising. I've written AI prompt guides for my own marketing team, right? I've written ICP profile guides, etc. So now they can take one of my 10, 15 pages deep dive analysis. They can feed it into the prompts, and then it can cut it down to short form ICP focused stuff, right? Because it has the right questions, the right framework and intention, etc. But now that might take 5 minutes. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that would take 5 days for a content team, right? Because very technical and this and this and this. I made a fact checker for my marketing team with AI because what we do is so technical. So I built an AI for fact checking for my own team so it can fact check the blog post to make sure that they are on point technically, right? But that's because I've created the foundation and the box for within AI can understand our solutions and what we do. So it knows the answers. But once you go beyond what's the known information, then you have to add something additional. So the critical thinking, coming up with new questions that no one has asked before, and owning your niche, owning your category, I would say is the most important things. At the end of the day, we can't all be doing short form videos or short form faceless videos, right? There has to be more in life than that. So and the customers actually need more than that. So we have to be able to substantially deliver that. I can also use my own LinkedIn account as an example. I have just under 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. In the past couple of years, and I write 13, 15 minute, 20 minute articles, deep dive analysis and stuff that is really, it's long form, it's super detailed, it's nerd plus. It's really niche knowledge, and it's not attainable, it's not easily available, it's not cut down to short form bits and sound bites. And yet every week I have 50, 60, 75 new newsletter followers on LinkedIn. I get 200, 300, 400, 500 new followers every month plus. And I have like legal bosses from the biggest tech companies on the planet. I got district attorneys in European countries. I got European Commission commissioners, etc., etc. Every week it keeps growing. Why? Because what I write is unique content. I write long tail niche expertise where I break down policy and law into technical, realized, what do you do with it? How do you implement it? What not to do, etc. And I'm one of the only people who does that. So if you can find a position as a young person, because right now, interns can't get a job, juniors can hardly get a job. You have to be medium or a senior to actually get a job in the industry in many countries and areas now, right?
Yeah.
I've even seen examples. I reside in Vietnam. I see examples where interns are paying money for getting an internship so they can finish their university educations because there's no more internships left. No one is taking interns. They replace them with AI, right? You see Amazon is about to fire, what was it? 30,000 people or whatnot, they said a few weeks ago. So all the big ones are going to fire people. So a lot of the entry jobs, a lot of the junior jobs, a lot of the path to medium role jobs will be gone and missing. So you'd have to put yourself as a positive outlier, owning a niche or category or corner of the internet where you're the man. Fundamentally, if you can do that, then fuck AI, don't worry. It will never take that position because there's no fiscal advantage for AI investing billions into taking over all the smallest corners. If they can take over 80% of all the generic knowledge, that's where the mass market money is, and that's what they're going to focus on. So that leaves, areas around the big square they're going to eat where the rest of us can function. And then think about this. Once AI is finished with eating the white-collar jobs, then AI plus robot is taking the blue-collar jobs, right? So I'm Danish. I grew up in welfare state, right? Denmark, Sweden, and Norway is welfare countries. So in Denmark, if you're unemployed, you can get money from the state, right? If you study in the school, you get money from the state, etc. So, but maybe we're getting to a point in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, where we will get universal income. We will get money every month for doing nothing because there's no jobs left. So what we're going to do? And we saw last week Elon Musk was out saying that in 10 to 20 years, he was pretty sure we would all be on universal income. Sam Altman has launched his WorldCoin exact to the same reasons, where he's talking about universal basic income, etc. I'm not sure we're going to end there. I think that there might be a chance that we find out that AI is actually not sustainable, that the amount of power and compute and cost of doing all the things we do is not a sustainable business model. And at some point, we might see that it will be so expensive to utilize AI because they cannot continue operating with billions in losses that it might change things up a bit. And honestly, all the governments that are changing laws and regulations right now to jump on the AI wagon to make sure they're not left behind, etc., how are they going to explain to their populations if they have 30% unemployment or 40% unemployment? What they're going to do is it then just the biggest companies that own AI that will own all production, all manufacturing, and then what about the rest? So are we then going over to high taxes for big corporations, and then everyone sits at home and uses AI, and then they get money from the state to go and buy food or what? I mean, there's a lot of really, really interesting questions that isn't really up for talks yet, but the way the direction is going with AI, either it vacuums the industry for jobs, especially in the tech business, or else at some point we'll see AI fail. And a lot of people talking about AI being hype and heading into a potential bubble now. So let's see who wiser. But at the end of the day, no matter what happens with AI, if you own your own category, your own niche, and you dig in deep, become a specialist, you will have an amazing future. So find an area and own it. That's my best advice. AI is the biggest challenge to generalists. So if you're a specialist, you should be faring pretty good.
Yeah, I love that. That's some great advice, Ronnie. And you made a great point, and I wouldn't be able to expand on it at all. You cleared every single point there. Now, Ronnie, if people want to find you, get in contact with you, maybe learn a little bit more, where can people find your LinkedIn to maybe follow that newsletter if they're really intrigued with that? Where can they find AesirX if they want to take a look at the website?
Go to AesirX.io, and then look around there. Go to LinkedIn and then look for Ronni, RONNI, and then K. If you write that in most countries on the world, I'm result number 1, and then add me up. And you can follow my newsletter as well. As I said, I write really long tail stuff, but if you're in this industry and you want to know what's going on and how to translate policy and law into what it means in terms of technical implementation, you should probably consider following me and reading some of my analysis. In the last week, I covered both the new person data protection law in India in a in-depth analysis, and then I covered in a 10-page analysis of the new digital omnibus in Europe, and that was just for the matters relating to consent and cookies, right? So I would say if you like going deep, and even honestly, you can take one of my articles and you can pass it to your AI as well, and you can ask for a summary, and you should still learn something new. So I write unique content every week. Normally it's every Wednesday, every Odin's Day, every week. I launch my weekly newsletter on LinkedIn, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on that. So I would say, but that's again, if you're a specialist and you know what you're doing, then people like to follow that today. I don't know, maybe it's also because we all had so many calls and influencers and whatnot. So now, I mean, we want to find specialists who know what they're doing. We want to find the old woman who can knit like no one else, or the old Italian who can cook like no one else and stuff. But it's funny, but we're starting to see that media trend really power through now, is that we want to follow specialists who really know what they're doing. Not some idiot who's sitting on YouTube claiming to be the next world wonder, right? We want to have substance, and want to have something real in our hands. So I love that. Personally, I love it, But I'm really bad at short form content, I love long articles. I love reading stuff, so yeah.
No, it all depends on the person, right? And I mean, long form content, you're going to get a lot more out of it. You're going to learn a lot more. You're going to, the society today is all used to short form content because that's what everyone listens to. That's what everyone does. But I think everyone's starting to kind of make a switch. People are starting to listen to podcasts a lot more than they ever used to. A lot of people are listening to podcasts over music now, which music is a form of short form content, and a lot of people are kind of navigating more towards YouTube in listening to long form content, because I mean it's so much more educational, like you said, through your news articles. So I mean, it's a great way. I'm definitely going to be checking it out and reading a few of them. But Ronni, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today and have a conversation. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been great. We've had a lot of education. We've learned a ton, and thank you for coming.
You're absolutely welcome, and let me know if you want to talk another time. It's been fun, and I hope that we can spread some awareness today, and that some of the stuff we talked about is going to hit some agency owners and some business owners, so they think, maybe they stop up and think, oh, did I actually check that, or are we doing this, or what can we do tomorrow? So that's awesome. Thank you, Korson.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ronni. Much appreciated.